think we should completely congratulate Paromita and team. But I'll tell you for what. Hang on a second. This is the 21st screening of a documentary film. It's no easy task, and she's got more screenings coming up. In fact, she's booked for screenings all the way into April. So I think this is completely ridiculously unheard of in the documentary film scene, so I think she really deserves a big hand for that. Paro. Okay, so I'm going to start with the title of the film. I don't know how many of you were curious about how Paro came upon it, because it's spun within tongue-in-cheek irony. So Paro, would you tell us about that? Because for me, besides this being the Victorian working girls phrase, there's also the Melanie Griffith working
it's one of my favorite films.
Yes, and then there's also today, how we talk about within a globalized capitalist framework, the manner in which we talk about working girls. So, Paro?
Well, I mean, I think that, when you start a project, you don't know what you're going to call it. Like many projects have got names in my computer, like Project Feminism, Project Toilet, whatever, right? So but with some films, you kind of know before you start what the name is going to be, and this was one of those. Like at the beginning, I just knew the name of the film, and I knew that I was going to do these histories of law in animation, but other than that, there was a whole lot still to discover, research, understand, for the meat of the film in a sense. And I think the idea of the working girl for me is it's not a description of a person who works, but it is a kind of idea of someone who takes pleasure in the world, who's out and about in the world. There are stereotypes of working girls. I mean, I have made earlier films about working girls, like Where's Sandra, which is a film about stereotypes of Christian girls in Bombay, who are essentially working girls, right? And who also like to have a good time and be out and about in the world and be someone themselves. That someone is themselves, basically. And I think that if the core of this film is that there are so many professions and so many people who are working who are not seen in the same way as you see working women now in the neoliberal society. There is this stress of representation of women in the workspace, but that workspace is always seen as a corporate workspace, right? It's always defined as something middle class and elite, and there's a lot of conversation about what is happening to women in those workspaces, and zero conversation about these other undefined at times workspaces that are in the film. So I also wanted to change that. I wanted to reunite the idea of work and other work, because it's not my intention to say that the women who are working in the corporate sector aren't suffering their own difficulties, but they cannot stand for all women. And these large majority of women some of them come from communities that have been working for many generations before respectable elites began working, right? I mean, sex workers have been working people and taxpayers long before, and erotic dancers. So long before anybody got an MBA and a suit. I mean, for generations, these people have worked and paid taxes. So I think it's you have to see the world differently. And the world really promotes a limited notion of reality today. It's ironic because we have so much media, but the images that we see in media are very narrow, and they make really narrow meanings of what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a person, what it means to be an Indian, what it means to be a working person. So I think, that was it. But overall, and I think that's borne out in the film, right? That this idea of a working girl, someone who crafts her own life, someone who has strength, resilience, resourcefulness, humor, cosmopolitanism.
Enjoyment,
pleasure. Of course, yeah. So all the people in the film have all these things in spades, And actually that's what it means to be a person. So I think they really evoke that idea, and so they like also, most of the people in the film like the title very much. So we just showed the film in Trivandrum to the ASHA Workers Union, and then when the film was over and we were taking photos, they were like, okay, working girls assemble. So it's.
I think we should have working girls t-shirts.
I know.
We really should. Okay, so I know that all of you are going to have questions about the content in the film. So I thought what I would talk to Paro about is her filmmaking process, actually, because her filmmaking over the years, it's her writing as well, her journalism and her filmmaking has always been a grand disruptor, and a grand disruptor of form. So is some, I mean, all of you who watched other films, you would know, Paramita's style of working. But I wanted to talk to her particularly in this film. There are very clear design choices being made. And for example, you might have noticed the use of the flower motif. You see the flowers in the non-fiction, you see it on women's saris, you see it on bedspreads hanging in the chawl, you see it, you see it all over the place. But you also see it in the animation choices. So, but it's not only the flowers, it's also the choice of the voices, it's the humor, it's the subtitles, it's the idea of the short story within this larger non-fictional narrative. Would you speak about that, please?
I mean, I think that,
wait, I did have one more thing before you say. Okay, so I wanted to ask you.
20 minutes without stopping.
I wanted to precede this by saying, Paromita Vohra, you have for a long time been the grand defier of the NFDC form or the NFDC school of documentary filmmaking. It's a mantle that we kind of grew up with or inherited. I sometimes sort of tongue-in-cheekly call it the aesthetics of misery or the aesthetics of drabness and virtue, high virtue. So,
I mean, I think, that we inherit certain ideas of what is a significant form. That in order to be political, you should look like this. You should not wear lipstick. I mean, we all went through a phase, right? Like, for example, the other day my friend said, oh, you're looking very nice. And I said, yeah, I've begun to use a Korean serum. And for me, this is a pretty exciting thing because I'm definitely the generation of women who were like, we are not going to do skincare and put malai on our face and we are feminists and we had a lot of loose clothes. And, we
raged against the machine.
Yeah, so we had that whole thing. And then, of course, we had our own evolution and journeys vis-a-vis clothes, beauty, appearance, love, romance, all of that. But you're told that in order to be taken seriously, you must be solemn. And I think solemnity is not serious. Actually, it is a very frivolous and shallow way of signaling that what you're saying matters, right? So I think there is a kind of, shall I say, caste system of my earrings are falling out all the time. There is a caste system of how we will take something seriously.
There's a hierarchy of,
So a hierarchy is a caste system, right? And I think that one hierarchy, there's a kind of hierarchy between fiction and non-fiction films in India, especially, but everywhere, that emerged was on the basis of purity. So there is this notion that you should not charge money to see a documentary or to see something that is uplifting. That thing should not be connected to money. If something is connected to money, it's already corrupt. So kind of like having sex for money, showing a documentary for money also makes you suspect character. And if you're really high-minded and you really wish to be in charge of uplifting the world, then you must be ascetic. Like you are shorn of pleasure, excess, fun. All these things do not belong in the serious, not just documentary, but NFDC's fictional forms also very much position themselves against the logic of the big commercial movie, which had songs, which was baggy, which was, not linear in any way, and not literal in any way either, somehow. So I think never, partly because I grew up in a family, my mother's family was in movies, so I grew up with, of course, reading Stardust and, listening to songs on All India Radio and waiting for Chitrahar to come and then inhaling the songs. Those 30 minutes of pleasure in the week in a Doordarshan desert. So I think that those were the things that made me so happy when I was young, that I really refused to accept that thing is lesser. It gave me so much pleasure, how could it be something that I should be ashamed of? And if I have to be ashamed of it, then I have to be ashamed of myself, actually, is what those forms are saying. And I think those forms do work in that very colonial way of saying that the things which you enjoy, these are not really serious things. And now, this is the real thing. You must mature into, like you have to mature into understanding Drupada after listening to movie songs. So you must mature into understanding a very boring film and saying, I am not bored, I am mature, right? So I think all of these are ways of enjoining respectability. They have all been traditionally elite forms. Because who can afford to work for very little money or not charge money for anything except people who already have at least some land or some friends with money who will give them a house on less rent to stay, etc., right? So I think first there is this kind of a hierarchy that existed, and a pretense that there are no, like how do films circulate? They circulate within a logic also, right? Even if it's not money, if you're not releasing them in cinema, there is a logic of circulation, which kind of film gets shown, which film gets accepted in a film festival, which doesn't. And when we were young, who is the filmmaker? Does he have a beard or not? Yeah. If he doesn't have, should we take him seriously or not? You know, all of that. So I think my films in that sense are kind of revolt against that. But I didn't position it as a revolt. It is like a desire to make the film in the way that I would like to see a film. And then there's a desire to be like the women in the film, actually. All of us would have some aspect of this experience that you wish to be accepted as you are. If you have to change everything that you are to be accepted, then what is that equality and what is that happiness and what is that love, right? So the desire to be accepted as you are, as an artist, as a person, these two things are intertwined. And you keep searching for that way to be. And I think also that watching films, especially if you are making films with an overtly political purpose, which I am, that I want people to change the way they think, I want them to see the world differently, I really don't believe you can just do it through a lecture. Meaning, your lecture has to be juicy. It has to make me get like an aha feeling. And watching films is a bodily experience. And so unless you and the film don't make body contact, if you don't laugh, if you don't feel that something like zing, zing, zing in your... You know, like one of my favorite cuts in the film is when Kaushalya is dancing. You know, when she says we dance and we show everybody our energy. And then she's dancing in this way. And then there's a cut to the street. And whenever that cut comes, just when she does it, I always feel like, it's so sexy. This cut is so sexy, right? So the feeling of that sexy cut, okay, is time mein ye hua, that is the thing which actually makes the film enter you. And once the film enters you and becomes a part of you, then I think it can change the way you are in the world and the way you see the world and the world, therefore. So that's where I'm coming from. I think the flowers, the hearts, a lot of those things were just things that I began to like at a certain time. Again, because, when I was young, I don't like pink, because I was positioning myself against all traditional girly things. And then I guess I went through a phase in the 90s, like many other women in the 90s, of reclaiming some of that, or for the sheer exuberance of it all, and then creating a kind of maximalist style, using all of that. So I feel, again, maximalism is something that is looked down on as being kitsch, as being too much, you're too much. There's too much girl, there's too much thing. I think I'm also against that too much idea.
Paro.
Yeah.
That's just wonderful. Yeah. There's so many, talking about bodily, everything bodily, not B-A-W, B-O-D-I.
But both.
B-O-D-I-L-Y. But both. There are images in the film that will always stay with me. Things like the cuts between the girls dancing, who dance with such exuberance, and like girls do want to have fun, and the Hanuman figure. Yeah. Or the men sitting there playing cards when the woman is making chapati. Or the multiple things like this. But to me, the film seems full of tiny subliminal messages which are actually communicating without anyone talking at all. And they're deeply political. Would you talk about those choices? And I don't know if you noticed, but at one point there was a banner that said Drishtikon. Right? It was just so... I love the inclusion of that. It was for a nanosecond, but it was an inclusion. There was a lorry that said, we're hanging, always banging, or something like that. There was the inclusion of that. So these are creative choices. Please, Paro.
So I think like the film is structured like a travelogue, because I was thinking when Laws of Social Reproduction project invited me to make the film, it was daunting, right? Like it was a lot of different things, and though I understood conceptually the connection between them, I did wonder, like, how is it going to communicate? So I thought like one way to do it is definitely not to do the intercutting thing that many such films do. And that was discussed by one of the editors, that no, we should intercut between people. But I felt that one profession in one place was important to do, because, it's also about context. Things happen in a context. Like what is happening in Madurai is very particular to Madurai. That context, that idea of work, those systems of faith, purity, sex, God, they belong to Madurai. You may understand and extrapolate from that to other places and contexts, but you need to understand it in that place. Similarly for Maharashtra or wherever else we go, right? If Rita is in Bombay, then Bombay is that kind of quick-witted place where she knows, like the way she lays out the entire thing for you, that, they're just busy having a good time and earning money, and they say, 1 minute, 4 minute, I'll just have a kid. And then in the end, all the money they've earned, they come to spend it. It's a quick encapsulation of the whole of society, which Bombay people are very good at doing. So there is a context in which all of these people and these professions become the way they become. So I felt like a travelogue style is the right thing to do. And then all of these little things, actually, they are a place we live in. Gender is a place we live in. Everything in the world is made up of small messages to us that you should be this way and you should not be this way. That slight look of disinterest in people's eyes when you tell them you make documentaries. That slight look of, can I talk to somebody more good looking when you're telling them something very interesting according to you? But those are the judgments that our worlds are made of. And we travel through time and place picking up those messages, right? So, but there are also, each one of us also reads other messages which make us know the meaning of life. And to reject the meaning of ourselves that people are giving us. Like all of the women in the film, they don't accept the meaning that other people are making of them or their work or their social existence. They laugh at everything, right? They understand with very incisive irony the structures of the world. So I think that really it is their gaze in a way that is making the film, right? They will be able to tell you all of these things. You don't need anybody else to construct this. Actually, people know all this about their lives. So the film is also just trying to reflect that gaze.
I think that was very smartly done because the idea of context, because those of you who understand Tamil, you know that with the erotic dancer in Madurai, you know what was happening. You know there was a self-respect movement. You know the language that she's speaking which reflects that self-respect movement. You know this Dravida culture. You know where it's coming from. And it's so rich and so, it tells it all. Her ability to talk about sex so wonderfully, it comes from something.
And see, you all know this context, but everybody doesn't know it. Like I knew some of it, but not. I read so many books while making this film, it's not funny. So the thing is that, and I feel this is the first film which has like thanked scholars like for their scholarship. I don't know if I really meant thank you or why the hell did you write so many books which I had to read. But the thing is that as you read, I mean, you feel like every sequence in the film you feel can be an hour long. Because there's so many layers to it as you read about it. Like, I mean, you can make a film about just that Sangam in Madurai, 2-hour-long film, which would be fantastic. There's such rich histories, so many overlaps in how things happen. So what if other people don't know that context? How do you communicate that context without explaining that context? And I think that this texture is what allows people to know it intuitively. Like, you may not know it in words like what you know about that history. Somebody else watching doesn't know that history, but they are sensing its meaning through that texture. And I think audiences are that intelligent. I think audiences should revolt against the continuous propaganda that they are stupid. I mean, if people are coming in, they're watching a 2-hour, 15-minute film, it's quite dense, and they seem to be laughing and moved, and many of you have stayed back to have this conversation. So clearly you are capable of this. But the world is always saying that the audience is not capable and you are such a fool. Why are you doing this? It's a fool's errand, but I don't think so. So I think, for that reason, you find a way to connect with the audience's capacity to know something intuitively and leave it there. Yeah.
Okay, listen, I'm not sure where we are for time. Sushma, would you tell me? But I do have one. Okay, for time? Okay. Paro, also, because this is clearly a film, the labor framework is so vivid, and the anti-caste framework, both of these are solid and intersectional in there. The moment where she talks about, so you want us to sew, you dump us somewhere, you ask us to sew and embroider, how am I going to earn a living? Would you just speak further about the labor, because there have been so many Marxist films made on labor and that lens, a certain kind of lens, but your lens is entirely different and is so cognizant of enjoyment of labor as well.
Yeah.
Because the point that these women are making is much, actually when I watched it, I thought, oh God, in 1997 when I made Guhya, they were saying that. Devdasi women were saying, why do we want to make baskets? I'd rather lie on my back for 100 rupees than weave a basket for days. And they're still saying the same thing. So could you talk about it?
Well, I mean, one of the things that Tejasvi said, which is not in the film when she spoke about this, is that she said so many sex workers have done so many other things before they came to sex work. And that Malatai says it, like I bhandi dhoti thi, I used to sell vegetables and then I would come and do sex work. So imagine the crushing amount of labor that is going into survival, right? and that all of that labor is stigmatized. It's not like being a domestic worker is not stigmatized. It's differently stigmatized than being a sex worker, of course. So eventually what you do is what makes sense for you as a human being to live. And maybe you even internalize some of that stigma, but yet you do the thing you need to do, right? I think that for me, a very like I'm not very easy to shock. Like the only thing that I got shocked about was when the Tamil translations came, and I was like, are all the songs about incest? What's going on? So I was like, what are they saying? But other than that, I think one thing that really blew my mind was discovering that so much of labor law only applied to places which were not doing charitable work. Like this was very shocking to me. Like a hospital is like you were doing good work, then certain kind of laws don't apply to you. And that means, so meaning like factories, profit-making enterprises.
Production, as long as there's production involved,
So the definition of work is rooted in that work which feeds into what is called the economy. But everything is feeding into the economy, into life, into whatever. So this distinction of care work as not being work, and is linked to the idea that the world, the only thing that matters in the world is making money for the sake of making money, not making money for some other reason. Not like if it was just about making money, then it would be fine to be a sex worker, domestic worker, or whatever else. If it was just about making money, then you would pay domestic workers a better wage. But it's not about making money. We hear a lot of people saying, guys, rokda bolta hai, and this thing, all this like swaggering declaration of realism that is pragmatic to think about money in this way. This is kind of also propaganda to maintain certain structures which enrich only a very few people, which decimate the climate, which don't allow all people to express themselves as they need, and don't have any means of actually taking care of people in a society. Like now we talk about masculine loneliness epidemic. I'm just like, if you're very lonely, please make some friends. Why are all of us, we are all supposed to leave all our other work and now think about solving the masculine loneliness crisis. I'm like, can you not do it for yourself? We did it. We were also lonely. We were also depressed. We figured out na ki thoda therapy karna chahiye, thode dost banao, thoda apne aap, we did it. You can also do it. So the way in which everybody is supposed to service a certain economy only and not service life, right? So I think that the simple thing is that when you start, and what is so great about the framework of this project that the film takes its starting point from, is that you just decide to look at the whole world from this side instead. And then as you travel into the world from this point of view, the whole world looks completely different and a bit ridiculous also, the way that other people think. I also think that when people talk about people in these kinds of places in the world, they always are like, how many people, admit it secretly to yourself, I won't shame you by making you admit it to me, have said that they're a very simple family. She is a very simple, meaning they're poor. Simple means people are poor. And then it is then made to sound like poor people are simple-minded. Like they don't have complexity. Like they don't have layers. But I think now, at least in this film, you can see that that's a crazy thing to think, right? Yeah. So, yeah.
How about like how many people use the word, myself included, help? And when we're firmly being told, please don't say help, it's patronizing, use domestic worker. So it's that sort of. Okay, so another thing that made me really laugh was your deep diving into the law and colonial law. There's this one part where the Punjabi Purity Association refers to something, breast, something, and her comely waist.
Her comely waist, yeah.
Comely waist. So it's you like her comely waist, but you despise her comely waist, both together.
I mean, like, I'm very curious about how this, suspicion of beauty comes about. That beauty always masks the devil. Because if you have so much fear, I mean, how scared are gents of desire and what it's doing to them? So the idea that this person who is making me feel desire is some kind of a witch who is casting a spell and trying to create the downfall of society. Yeah. So I mean, like, I'm curious about whether it was always so, or it only became so after certain kind of celibacy-driven notions became more popular, or I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah, but It's that sort of duplicity that's really curious and interesting.
I mean, in another film that I made, Morality TV or Loving Jihad, it had all these, like it was, the commentary was based on the way, I don't know how many people here know Manohar Kahaniya. It's a true crime magazine from North India in Hindi. And it has that pulp fiction thing like Meenu's heaving breasts and, you know, liquid eyes, looked in the mirror, her lips were trembling, and she did not yet know what a terrible end she would come to. So this way that you are talking about sex while saying, I'm talking about it only to tell you that you are, it's a bad thing, it's a bad thing. I'm not enjoying telling you, but I have to do it for upliftment. The same way that I have to make a boring film for upliftment.
Okay, so the thing that really shocked me, or the thing that I had absolutely no knowledge about, was the system of egg donations. So would you speak about, because everything else, some idea, but this absolutely none.
So even I didn't know. It was also completely new to me when I started working on the film, because we all know about surrogacy. And because, as you see from the history of the protest against surrogacy, that took up so much center stage in our consciousness that the egg donor thing, though, like, it was, we don't know about it. But anyway, it's there. And it's much easier to do than surrogacy now. And there is a huge, I mean, IVF is a huge
market
business,
What did you say, $4 billion annually?
I mean, that was then, so I don't know what it is now. But the thing is, a lot of people get IVF. Like, we are all, each of us will know some people who have gone for IVF. Now, what we don't know is how many people in that got eggs. Like, some people may have to have somebody else's egg, somebody else's sperm. And they may carry the baby in their womb, but it's a kind of mix and match baby in that sense. So this seems to be like going by what demand there is. It's really a huge need.
And it's a huge amorphous market.
Yes,
and
it's completely
unorganized in some other...
because it's illegal. You're not allowed to take money for donating an egg. Even egg donation is supposed to be altruistic. So technically what people are getting is TADA. Because it takes up quite a bit of time, because you have to sync the cycle of the donor to the receiver of the egg, and then you have to take hormones for that. Then you have to keep coming for scans to see how big the egg has gotten. Then the egg is harvested, as they call it. So it's a month's commitment to that thing, right?
And then all the ridiculousness of the religion, caste, color.
But I felt like the egg donation thing is like matrimonial column, right? Like it's the same logic that people use,
Let's open it up to all of you. Questions from the audience? Oh my God, lovely. Yeah, just go for it. From here?
I found it very interesting that one of the police applicants, I think it was you asked her, is there a toilet nearby? What's the toilet like? And I instantly remembered Q2P. So I was wondering, and I know that Working Girls is a kind of, I mean, there's Unlimited Girls as well, which of course I saw many years ago. So, but I know that there is a connection. And then, of course, I felt like there was a connection to Q2P. And now I feel like I need to go back and watch the film again to see if there are other references to, and of course, where is Sandra, again, the Working Girls thing. So I don't know, I'm feeling this kind of almost nerdy desire to go back and see what other connections.
That's my secret agenda.
What other connections there are. And were they and are they real Easter eggs that you planted, or did it just happen?
I mean, I think they're like retrospective Easter eggs. They were not, see, I'm not a guy. And there's Easter egg type of like, I'll be very happy if you dedicate a blog to Easter eggs in Working Girls of Paromita's own film, because that will make me a bit like Shah Rukh Khan, right? Like Shah Rukh Khan's films, I think of it more that way. It's like Shah Rukh Khan's films are continuous references to his own persona. So I think, in a sense, this is, but I think that, like after it was done, after we would edit it, I would be like, oh, well, of course, Q2P has the same thing. And in fact, the first day of shooting in Q2P, just to get warmed up, because Q2P, when we made it, there was like no information out there. And even I was a bit lost. Okay, I want to make this film on toilets, but what will I put in this film? I don't know. So on the first day, just to get started, we just went to all the train stations and shot all the loos and hoped something would emerge from that. So I thought of that. The the reason I asked her about the toilet, though, is not because of that.
Okay.
It's because all of these women who had come in for the police entrance test were sleeping on the platform because there was no space for them to stay.
Right.
So then I was like, where are they bathing and where are they going to the bathroom? That was a question. That's why I asked her that. But so that's why I'm saying it's a retrospective Easter egg, because when you watch it, but I guess all that says in a way is that, you know, in 30 years of making films with certain kinds of concerns, those concerns will always be overlapping through everything that you do, because they shape the lives of women in the world. No? So whether you can access a toilet is often a very important reason for what you will and won't do in life. And wanting to be a Sandra is a desire in all of us, forever and ever, may it never go. But actually my first ever film, Annapurna, which is a small film about a women's food collective, I feel also like that film also the mill workers used to be, many were women. And it's when law came in, saying you have to give maternity benefits and the 8-hour working day, that women began to get laid off from the workforce. And they went into the unorganized sector and began making dabbas, like kitchens for working, for textile mill workers. So in some ways I also see it like, I started making films in 1995. I started working in the year 1990, 1 year before liberalization. So in some ways this, you know, 3 decades of liberalization and what has happened in India, like, of course for women, it has meant coming out into the world in so many different ways, especially for middle class women. But it's also meant all these realities about cities no longer being for different people. It's meant the realities of class being eroded from the public conversation altogether. And especially when it comes to sexuality and gender, they have become placeholders for politics. I don't know any young people with class politics. It's all like, I'm queer, I'm kinky, and that's my politics. But that's part of politics, of course, for all of us, but that can't be the sum total of politics, right? So I think somewhere this film is also, like, I feel almost implicated. After all, I ran Agents of Ish for 10 years, and so much of my work is dedicated to the idea of pleasure and the bringing in of personal life, sexuality, and all of these things into what I felt was a partial discussion on politics. But now I'm feeling like, here is the smell of blood still, and you know, you guys need to talk about other things. So there is some of that, I think, crisscross along the years that's in the film.
So, sorry, but it's a beautiful question, and there were other places. It also speaks about the shaping of you as a filmmaker, because the way in which you speak to people. You know, are you getting bitten by mosquitoes? Are you hungry? Have you eaten? Have you been to the toilet? Is it clean? It speaks of something.
The other question I had was, you know, the egg donor agent. Where did you meet her? I mean, she's such an interesting personality.
She's amazing, and I'm really in love with her. So I met the project, the Laws of Social Reproduction project, was networked with some organizations. They're doing these large studies, looking at all of these different professions. So they had met some people through whom they had met others, and so on and so on. So they connected us to one of them, and then we asked to meet some of the agents, and we had some numbers. But of course, they were always slippery, and then they would talk to you on the phone, but then they would not meet you. And so it was a little like, and I had the conventional way of doing things being that I should meet at least 3 people, then I should shortlist from that whom I want to go with, and maybe I should shoot with 2 people in case I want to. But then I met Rita, and as soon as I met Rita, I was like, I don't want to meet anybody else. Like, I just want to shoot with Rita, because she is an incredible person. And I spent one whole day just being, like, when I told Rita that I just want to come with you wherever you go for one day, because I couldn't exactly understand what I would shoot with her. No? And so she had to go to a hospital for a pickup, as they call it, for the day that the egg is harvested. So I just sat. And the thing about Rita is that from morning to night, she's on the phone. Her whole work is on the phone. Phone call, phone call, phone call. And just listening to those phone calls, I was amazed at the world that she's a part of. So, and her intelligence, her candor. See, her candor, or Vanita's candor, is not a naive candor. It's a very sophisticated candor. And it's like, see, all of us have been on a dozen dire dates, or had 100 dispiriting dating app matches, where the only questions you get asked are, where do you live? Tell me about you. What do you do is too extreme. Tell me about you, right? The incapacity of people to have conversations is staggering. And here is Rita, who's got a great capacity for it, right? So I think, like, I just knew that's all I wanted. I just wanted Rita. I don't need to shoot anything much else, was my feeling. And one of the stages in the editing, Rita's whole sequence was edited only using phone calls, because she got so many phone calls, and the phone calls themselves revealed what, like, Didi, can I get 1,000 rupees advance? Mere bachche ka birthday hai, ye hai. So you also understood what the egg donors are going through. Anyway, it got re-edited, but yeah, so that's how I met Rita.
Yeah, hi. It was a very nice documentary. Like, you infused wit, like the person you are as well.
Thank you.
So the documentary is extensive as well as expansive. So did you want it that way, and how many years did it take for you?
So, I mean, I made it as part of a project called the Laws of Social Reproduction. And they were working on these 5 domains: sex work, erotic dancing, paid housework, which is domestic workers, unpaid housework, and surrogacy. So they wanted those 5 dimensions in the film for sure. So that was a given. And then it was up to me. I want to choose 5 people in one city. How I want to do it, they didn't mandate that. But they said these are definitely these things need to be in the film. And I added the ASHA workers section into, because it seemed to me like a natural progression of the idea I was working with. I mean, the project itself is doing many, many, many different things. Like, it's looking at direct cash transfers and what impact that has on women's lives, so on and so forth, which the film didn't get into in a detailed way. But for me, the film was more kind of examination of these structures, how law intersects with people's work lives, how they never, so it's a kind of construction of gender and the social reproduction of certain ideas that the film is really following. And so ASHA workers seem to me to be a kind of like the apogee of that finally the government also subsumes the idea of motherhood into devaluing women's work, right? And I think, like, all my films, however, are expansive and extensive. Like, I really stuff them with everything I can find. And I don't know if you watch Korean dramas, but there is this, like, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful K-drama called My Liberation Notes. It's really exquisite.
I watched Pachinko.
Huh? You watched?
Oh, that's Pachinko?
Pachinko. That's a movie. Like, Korean dramas are like a series, right? 18 episodes or whatever. So in My Liberation Notes, one of the women gets a phone call from her crush, and he asks her if you can meet today or tomorrow, and she immediately says yes. And then somebody says to her, how could you say yes so fast? You should play hard to get. Otherwise, men don't find it interesting. And she said, how can you do that? Like, if you were giving somebody food, would you feed them little bit at a time? You would get killed for doing that, so why should you do it in love? And I feel, why should you do it in movies also? Like, I would rather put everything in the movie. I mean, songs, dances, animation. I've always gone over budget. I never make any money in the movies I make because I keep on adding things. And I think it's great. It's like, I think it's great. Everything, like a Hindi film song, it has so many instruments. All those Hindi film songs in the 50s and 60s that we love, they have so many instruments, so many styles in one song. I like that. Like, everything all together now. Yeah.
And absolutely the entitled song.
Yeah.
And how long did it take?
Oh, I took about 18, 19 months.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ashwati, and it was a wonderful thing because I also work with labor and work. I am interested, I have 2 questions basically. One is, I'm interested in the kind of audience that you get for your screenings, because you said, it has already completed 21 screenings if I'm not wrong, and you have quite a few lined up as well. Another thing is, how did you, how were you able to get into those private spaces of those people, because there were quite a few close-ups. So how did you get in there? Did you pay them, or or were they? Willingness. Okay. I'm just keeping it aside because multiple ways, but still, did they know, or do they know that it is going to be screened like this? I also heard you say that the ASHA workers from Kerala had watched you.
Everybody has watched. Everybody has
Have they
the
watched
film.
it? Okay.
Everybody has watched the film.
Okay, okay,
Only
yeah.
the people in Shillong have not yet seen it.
Okay.
But everybody else has watched it.
Okay. Yeah, so these two things basically.
I mean, I think, there are a few different layers to the response. One is that the film is not made it's not made with a kind of television. And also, it's not a television-aimed film. The way that a lot of documentaries now get made is that you'll choose an interesting topic or interesting character, and then you'll go ahead and make it. But the film itself is made in a context, right? That there is a research project. That project is networked with different organizations. These people, some are not connected to organizations, but all the sex workers are part of unions and collectives. They have their own history of political histories and political awareness via which they are entering the film. So I think that if I just decided to make this film, I would need to spend like 5 or 6 years doing this work in order to form relationships with people where they decide whether they want to be in the film or not. They do all know how the film will be shown, and they have all seen the film, and they have liked it very much. So that's definitely a relief, because you always worry about that. In terms of, however, intimacy, I think that if you really watch the film, what you will see is that there is no intimacy that is like a gut-spilling intimacy. The intimacies are primarily quite, I feel, conceptual. And so I'm saying, like, if you come into Vanita's house and see her with Arjun and all of those things, Vanita is a sex worker activist. So she has a great political understanding of why or what she wants to express about herself, right? So Rita also, I mean, actually Rita said some drastic, like she said things about her husband, like, oh, he always used to fuck up the situation, like he'll take loans, he'll blow up all the money we've earned, blah, blah, blah. So finally I told him, you kindly sit at home and let me only manage everything. And initially we had that in the film, but then I just kept feeling, gosh, it just makes him look like, she's saying it with genuine angst, but she may not like it when it's finally there in the film. So we took that part out. So you also take some calls which respect the humanity of people in the film, right? And I think you can do that because your film is not dependent on people telling you everything in order to make itself. And I think that has been the most important choice for me. Early in my work life, I worked on an American project where very much it was that thing, that the close-up of the broken-hearted face, the story of somebody's life followed as a character. And I was so uneasy with that I think I devoted a lot of my creative energy to thinking of a form where intimacy was not extracted from people in that way, that the film was not dependent on anything that people did not want to give. And I think once you decide to make a form in that way, then you arrive at different forms of intimacy, what I call a fleeting intimacy, where people are intimate on the terms that they are comfortable with. So, yeah, and in terms of payment, yes, people were paid for their time. What are the audiences that have seen the film? All kinds, I must say. And, I was telling Kirtana, I made a film after 14 years. So, and a lot has changed in 14 years in terms of, there was a whole documentary scene, continuous sets of screenings and contexts which no longer exist. So I really wondered, who will come in to see this film? And I found it interestingly varied because, yes, you get a certain section of audience who are activists, academics, artists, like certain kinds of urban people. But we've had a lot of audience that was very like what you call regular people. Like, I think they also leave very intensely moved, which I was also telling JC that I wish I could see the film the way they are seeing it. Like, it's not possible for me to know what they are feeling, right? But there is some kind of welling up of emotion where I think that people who are in these roles of taking care of others as mothers, as caregivers of elders in their homes, etc., have kind of connected to these things. And then there is a little bit of word of mouth on that. Even when I was making the film and I would tell people, it's a film about care work, everybody was like, oh, I really want to see it. And I'd be like, do they really want to see it? But they are coming. And then some audience, like we showed the film in Kochi to the Women Lawyers Association. And that's quite a variegated group, right? Like one of the women asked me, are you married? So I said, no, I'm not married. Or rather, she said, do you have any children? And I said, no, I'm not married. And she said, that's why successful. I was I got so shocked when she said it, right? Like, look at the amount of his personal history and emotion of what you have to give up in order to be this person who is married and has children. So I think, like, yeah, the film is reaching a more diverse audience because of its thematics. And I think it will go on to do so some more. I mean, when we showed it to ASHA workers, I kept saying that don't show the whole film like poor things. Just show them their part. Because there's so many languages and it will be so heavy going for them. And they were like, no, they'll watch it. And I was pretty amazed that they watched the whole film. Like, only towards the end, they began to feel like, when are we going to come? Like, this film is not finishing if we have not come as yet. So then when they came, they were really excited and happy after that. But they watched the film, which amazed me. And the film was just shown in Kathmandu by Tarangini, which is, interestingly, an organization that works with the same combination of people, sex workers, domestic workers, and surrogates. And I was like, again, now these people, they are like Nepali, they don't even know, like, at least in like Trivandrum, they could understand the Tamil to a great extent, and all that. I feel now these poor Nepali people will watch this film, what will they get out of it? But then they send us all these videos, and people said, yeah, we couldn't understand a lot of it, but we felt that it is our stories on screen. This is interesting to me because I don't think I anticipated that. I have to say that I'm not one of those filmmakers who believes that I'm going to uplift anybody. So for me, it's a discovery, and I don't know, maybe if I don't watch the film for 6 months and then I see it again with an audience, I'll see what they are feeling, but yeah. And there are some people who've seen the film who obviously are like closed. Usually middle-class elites, not many, but a small percentage, who are like, I already know this.
Yeah, but we've never figured out what either the objection or the...
Yeah, there is a kind of like resistance, right? That they're not wanting to articulate us, but it makes them uneasy. So that's also fun.
Okay, on
Yeah.
that fun note,
Yes.
girls just want to have fun. We will close this session. Thank you so much, Paromita.
Thank you, Kirtana. Thank you to MAP.
Thank you,
And to all of
Matt.
you.
And leaving you with one last thought about her unraveling of the acronyms, Sita, Pita, Nari, and Asha.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paro.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks to all of you for staying on for the discussion.
There are some postcards outside. Please help yourselves to postcards. If you want to write to us and tell us what you thought of the film, that would be awesome. There's a QR code, and you can write on that. And if you know people who want to screen the film, please tell them to screen it. Yeah, to approach us for screening.
Yes, before everybody leaves, I'd just like to take a moment to thank Paromita and Kirtana for coming all the way here and giving us this incredibly insightful discussion. And we hope that you all got that zingy feeling that she was talking about. Just to reiterate, this event is in conjunction with our first permanent exhibition, Visible Invisible, which will be open for the last week. And we have a bunch of really cool events lined up next weekend as well. So please check out our website if you're interested. Tomorrow, we have a performance in collaboration with Zuban Publishing House. And yeah, if you're interested, please do register and come back tomorrow as well. And also, before everybody leaves, please scan this QR. We'd love to have your feedback and know your thoughts about today's event. Thank you.